And if you were there, you know that there was no Nazi salute.
I was there, and I couldn't say that there was no Nazi salute.
Why would you?
Could you say there was?
Why would you produce something if you don't have some facts?
The story said that it was apparent. It didn't say it was.
We went in there, as Kevin said, it was to some degree the extension of an olive branch. Had we had an apology and a retraction, I think that would have been the end of the story. But unfortunately, I think they've dug their heels in, and Ashley Wadwani has now doubled down on that once again with you. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes, because there is no excuse for that story being printed in that defamatory manner. There's absolutely none. The reporter was present. She was aware of the content of the video prior that she had viewed. That was a hit piece, and there's no excuse for it.
Thousands of you have already started to come out to help a Kelowna, British Columbian man named Kevin Gowie be vindicated after a Kelowna Capital news reporter, Jacqueline Gelineau, depicted him as a neo-Nazi when in fact he was engaging in Christian prayer during a parental rights protest on September 20th. If you saw our part one of this report, which you can find at our special website called stopmsmlies.com, you were just as shocked as I was to see the footage we obtained from Kevin and his friend Chris Williams, both of whom you'll hear from in this report, that showed Jacqueline Gelineau dig her heels in and blame him for how he prayed. We've got more clips to show you of that madness, but not before I remind you to open up another device real quick and go to stopmsmlies.com and sign the petition there if you haven't already. The shocking part of the story of all is perhaps after this journalist has admitted to seeing the prayer and admitted to being present at the protest the entire time. It's been months, and this outlet owned by Black Press Media, who gets handouts from the Trudeau government, has still not corrected the record. Go to stopmsmlies.com, and here is Kevin and Chris Williams now.
I never actually saw myself. A friend of mine on the island in Nanaimo sent the story to me. And of course, I was horrified, maybe mortified. I didn't expect to see my name up like that and a picture of me. So my initial thought was one of disbelief. And then I kind of migrated to a bit of anger and then defense. I was thinking, what's this going to do for my life at this point? Am I going to be targeted now by a bunch of wild people who have a hate-on for Nazis? Or am I going to be able to get work, travel, whatever? The impact started to sort of resonate right through. And I still am concerned for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we know this stuff sticks, it circulates, people screenshot things. Now, in the video, it looks like, Chris, you and Kevin haven't known each other that long. What exactly brought you two together and to come and go ahead and try to get the record corrected here?
That's correct. So following the protest, my picture, in fact, was posted on both Facebook and Twitter accounts. I was labeled as a transphobe. As a result of that, my wife did receive a text message that was somewhat threatening in nature. I didn't know why someone would go to that extreme to refer to me as transphobic with no evidence, and based solely on the fact that I had been attending something that I thought was in the interest of my stepson. What I did was I spoke to an individual who ended up being a mutual friend of both mine and Kevin. And I said, I've been labeled a transphobe, and I see that there's another gentleman been labeled a Nazi. I would really like to connect with him. And he said to me, I've just spoken to him. Here's his name. Kevin and I connected. We went for coffee the next day. And within a few minutes of having coffee, we came up with the idea that perhaps it's best that we go directly to the paper, speak with Ms. Gelineau, and try to get some rationale for why she would choose to make such a defamatory statement against the character of Mr. Gowie without any proof.
Why do you think they agreed to that interview basically with you guys when they weren't even going to correct the record? What do you think that was all about?
I don't think she had any idea what was coming. And she said that. She said, which is also egregious, she actually acknowledged that they had several people come in there physically and emails and phone calls and asking them to retract and do the right thing before we got to visit her.
So how can I help?
So Jacqueline, do you know me?
I don't know.
Have you ever met me, seen me?
I don't believe so.
Then you assume that we're here about the article? Why is that?
Because we've received multiple complaints about the article that I wrote. So that's what I'm assuming. We had someone come by yesterday. I've received multiple phone calls and emails. We typically don't have people come to the office.
Right. Seems you've hit a nerve, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know that there's video footage, lots of it, showing us praying, and several of us in worship. You know that, right?
I have seen the video footage of the event.
And of the prayer.
And you still stand by, at this point, you're standing behind your allegation that that was a Nazi salute. Having seen that footage, that's what you're saying to us right here?
I'm saying that it appeared to be a Nazi
Appeared.
salute.
Does it still appear to be that now that you've seen the footage of the prayer? You've said you've seen the footage.
Yeah.
Does it still appear? Do you stand by what you said?
That's correct, sir.
You do.
It's just so iniquitous. It's unbelievable. It is literally unbelievable. There was no way anybody could see harm in a gesture of prayer, at least not any sane person.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of it being ridiculous, I'm going to throw now to Pastor Art Lucier, who I interviewed just really quickly to get his take. For those of you who saw part one of this report, you know that Pastor Art is who led the actual prayer, not the Nazi salute. Here's what he had to say.
I believe that the people who really did be persecuted by the Nazis, the Jews, 85 years ago on November 8th, we have the anniversary of the beginning of the Holocaust when they began to smash all the windows of the Jewish businesses. And it began a great, terrible persecution by true Nazis. To believe that Christians coming together and just raising a hand in prayer to the Lord is equivalent to those who perpetuated deaths of millions of Jews, this journalist should be ashamed and should be fired or should find another line of work. That's my opinion.
Now, I did get a response back from one of the editors who approved this piece of propaganda. But Chris, so did you. You heard back from Ashley Wadwani. Tell us what she said in an email to you.
She essentially said that they were not willing to print a retraction. However, they would print Mr. Gowie's version of what took place there and his understanding of what he was doing, but they would not print a retraction. And that's despite knowing that what they were printing was completely false. It's really disturbing because the reporter herself said she viewed the video twice before publishing, and she was also present there. So there's absolutely no excuse for that kind of journalistic impropriety and misrepresentation.
It's not always my job to report strictly on facts. What I am also supposed to do is to share people's experiences and emotions of what's happening.
Part of your journalistic process is to give everybody a voice.
That's right.
Where was my voice? You just put a picture out and framed me as a Nazi. Where was my voice?
There was no excuse for a lot of things there, especially the moment when, Kevin, you're told that you pray incorrectly and then you do the most noble thing and invite Jacqueline Gelineau to church, and this is how she responds.
Like just as a single, like a woman on my own, that people won't be physically violent or anything like that. Is that correct? If I attend, I just have to ask for my safety.
You're joking, right?
Okay, good. I'm glad.
No, I'm dead serious. That had to be a tongue-in-cheek comment. You obviously don't actually understand what deep love and care and compassion is. You clearly have no idea.
Well, sir, I do have to ask because I'm being invited to attend something, I'd be going alone. I have to make sure, okay? Just for my own safety, that's all. That's all I'm asking.
I guess the burning question is, did she actually attend church? She said she would be happy to do so. Did that happen? Did she make any attempt to do so?
No, and in fairness, I didn't follow up on that. I had to first get the blessing of our church and our pastor. And I felt that until this had gone a little further and we'd explored it a little more, I wasn't going to raise that again. But the response to the offer tells the whole story anyway.
And it's never too late to be saved. I'm sure the church will always welcome you, Jacqueline, at any time. Chris, I'm going to throw to something that you said towards the end of the whole debacle. And it's about the right for Christians to pray in whatever way they feel fit.
You're not the thought police, you're not the thought police, and you're certainly not the thought police. We can worship the God that we want to worship, and we can hold our hands up to worship our God in any way that we like. And you are not going to depict that as a Nazi salute and us as fascists and Nazis. That's actually, if you look at things, the exact ideology that you're perpetrating. You're perpetrating hate and divide.
Now, there's another moment here when they come to shut it down. And Chris, it's the offense they take over something you say that I don't even think that was that bad. They heard 50 minutes. I'm assuming they could overhear most of the conversation. They were very close by, of Jacqueline Gelineau saying one offensive thing after another to Christians, to both of you, to your faces, and listen to what they take offense of.
And I'm going to say this in the nicest way. I think you should go home and do some soul searching with regards to your career, or at the very least with how you conducted yourself. No, I get to say she should think about how she conducted herself. Well, I think as with Jacqueline, there's a degree of hubris attached to this agenda that's concerning. They really do not see that there is another perspective, and that there may be a truth that's outside of what their belief and the narrative that they're trying to advance is. And I think that's what's particularly disturbing. We went in there, as Kevin said, it was to some degree the extension of an olive branch. Had we had an apology and a retraction, I think that would have been the end of the story. But unfortunately, I think they've dug their heels in, and Ashley Wadwani has now doubled down on that once again with you. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes, because there is no excuse for that story being printed in that defamatory manner. There's absolutely none. The reporter was present. She was aware of the content of the video prior that she had viewed. That was a hit piece, and there's no excuse for it.
Now, another outrageous moment is when Jacqueline Gelineau admits that nobody else made a police report. Instead, it was her who gave the police the bogus photo.
So you provided that and reported that you believed it was a crime that had been committed?
Oh, no.
Then why did you report? Why were the police involved?
Because I sent it to them. I said, is this something that you are investigating? Is this something that you're looking into?
And what was the response from them?
They said we weren't aware of it, but since then, so that was prior to the article being published, and then since then, they told us that they're going to be investigating it.
And what offense are they investigating?
Hate speech. What
was going through either of your minds when you learned that, according to Jacqueline Gelineau, which, by the way, the RCMP deny, Kevin, you're now being investigated for hate because she delivered the photo of you praying without context?
Yeah, that was perhaps for me one of the scariest concepts of this whole thing. And I mentioned that to her. I said, you have apparently the police investigating me for a hate crime, when clearly the hate crime is actually on your end. And I still, until we'd heard that in fact the police weren't investigating it, that's been on my mind continuously. I've spoken to Chris many times about it. Are they going to come knocking on my door? I was ready to go to them and say, I believe you guys are doing a story on me or investigating a story on me. Here I am. Let's get the real hate crime investigated here.
Well, I'm glad we were able to set that record straight, unlike Kelowna Capital News. Now, Chris, I understand you have a background in intelligence. You mentioned that in the footage. Tell us a little bit about what that background is and what your thoughts were now knowing that this footage had been delivered to the RCMP in that style.
Yeah, I spent over 2 decades as a member of the RCMP and retired in 2019. The latter part of my career was spent to a large degree working in intelligence. I was completely shocked and mortified that, again, something could be fabricated like this, fed to the police, and then an investigation into a hate crime opened as a result of it. I'd love to encourage just other Christians, not only Christians, whatever faith you're from, I'd like to encourage people to stand up when they're seeing this kind of unfair oppression, unfair defamation, unfair representation for our media. You at Rebel News are doing a great job of identifying some of these mainstream media lies, but I think it's important for the average person to have the courage to come forward. I don't think most people do. I think that they are intimidated. They're worried about the repercussions. And in this case, Kevin had the courage to come forward. And I think that that should be a beacon of light to other people that they do not need to accept this kind of malpractice from our media.
Black press media has taken millions of dollars from the federal government, unlike Rebel News that doesn't take a cent. If you appreciate that Rebel News works hard to bring you the other side of the story, even if that story is one the mainstream media should have told to start, then please go to stopmsmlies.com. Not only is that where you can go to sign and share this petition, it's also where you can go to chip in a few bucks to help our journalism go strong. Again, that's stopmsmlies.com.